Yes, an entire time on a weekend on feet and legs. So anyone want to make a comment about last time or anything? Any sharing to happen before we get going?
Yes, I've been using the revised way of thinking about the pelvic pulse with several of my students, and I wondered if anybody had come up with the wording for I pull the iliac spine, just not back and wide. Is it round and forwards? Or
Oh, right. Yes, I haven't told you the new wording. That is one I've come up with is I pull the PSIS towards the ASAS. So the posterior iliac spines, I pull the posterior iliac spines round towards the anterior iliac spines.
Great.
Does that
Yes.
mute?
Yeah. I was working with variations of that sort of wording, and I wondered if you'd come up with something.
Yes, I think I forget which teacher we worked it out, but that seems to be the, and I like the PSIS, you know, we worked with them in I think they're important points. So I like the fact that they're now in the picture on this one. And it just, I mean, I was sort of thinking about it the other day and I suddenly thought this makes much more sense that this way the transverse abdominals really are acting to open the back.
Yes.
It's much more direct, isn't it, really, for the, I was thinking of it before with front muscles, but actually the back muscles is more, and then the front muscles come along. Hannes.
Right.
And I read in your book, chapter 11 and the psoas, and there you mention the iliacus, which is also from the iliac anterior and the this spine, iliac spine anterior, and the other end is on the other side of the back. It's also the posterior iliac spine. So might be engaging also the iliacus into the legs.
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
And maybe this is a reason everybody had the feeling of, oh, it's connecting so much more than just pulling the iliac spines back, because it's maybe many others.
Yes, we did a whole thing which in the advanced TTO course that we didn't do in advanced OTT on exactly what's happening at the back there. So we've worked out quite a lot more there. I'm going to be putting it as supplementary stuff in the book club, so you'll get it. Anadora and Micah too. Yeah, Anadora, you're muted.
I was just wondering if another, what I'm thinking of is in the way we are pulling the pubicoccygeals, like think them longer and pull them forwards. We could do the same with the thoracolumbar fascia, as if you have like it's going on to both sides, and it's from there in a way like opening or a pull to sides, like a band that goes round and on and on.
Yes, like we have that one and then we have that one and then we have that. It's like the whole of you becomes a coracle almost.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Thank you.
So that could be maybe for some people, if it's confusing, could be also a way of thinking. I thought.
Well, this is what would be nice to play with.
Yeah.
Micah, you had.
Yeah, I had some experiences with pupils with these pulls, and actually I wrote them down. I watched the recording from last time, and you mentioned them already. I pull posterior iliac spine around to the front, and because I was also thinking about what's the precise wording, and there were different experiences with it, but all of them mainly felt the connection into the legs.
Right.
And most of them felt like the rectus stays more or less free out of the way. And one was also experiencing that everything what you were saying, Hannes, last time, that it brings the inside organs more to the back, like it draws everything more into the back. I think
I'm just trying to find my picture of the yes, keep talking. I'm just trying to
so so there were different experiences, but somehow it I like to think about the iliacus as well. And I found out that the posterior iliac spine is actually much higher than I expected it to be. I thought it was much lower, but it's actually pretty high. And still, I mean, I was maybe thinking more of the sacrum, the beginning of the sacrum, but actually it's quite high. I mean, maybe it's also different in several people, but yeah, however,
Well,
I just wanted to share my experiences.
the same height as the front iliac spine, because there's
Yeah.
if the pelvis is neutral, they're supposed to be at the same level. Yeah, this is the picture I was going that we did for Alison. Will have seen this before, and Sarah as well. So the posterior iliac spine, I think, is going to be this point here, isn't it? At the back here. Because the anterior wanted to be at the front, the posterior at the back. It's sort of either side, they're either side of the sacrum. So they're closer together than the front ones, of course, are much further apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the gluteus medius on the inside of that. You've got the gluteus maximus on the outside of it. And then on the inside, you've got the iliacus, as you were saying. So they're all there, as it were. And then you've also then got this link, the sacrotuberous ligament finishes on the PSIS, apparently, and that then's linking into the superficial backline with the hamstrings, and then up to the erector spinae. The erector spinae come down and make fascial links onto the sacrum and then onto the sacrotuberous ligament. So they'll be linking in. So I think it's just like the iliac spine is, the front iliac spine is a real roundhouse of connection. Nobody talks about this one, but it seems to me that this is the same as well, that it's a real roundhouse of different layers of muscle interaction, potentially. So that's what we're getting at. Yeah, Anna-Dora?
So if you introduce the pelvic pulse, would you replace front iliac spine back and wide through this one? Or you would work with all of them, or? Well,
I'm sort of playing with, I mean, my pupils, none of them are needing that. I've just started 2 new pupils, so I'm looking forward in a few weeks' time to introducing them and see how they find it. But and I certainly, I've shown it to a couple of older pupils, but it's like, oh yeah, that's good. They've just sort of, but it's different talking it through with a new pupil. I certainly talked somebody in one of the groups through the other day, leaning back in the chair, and they're just sort of straight off. It was easier to take the iliac spines back, but I really want to replace it with this way round. I think if I can, if it's understandable that way round, because I think it's biologically more true.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't create this sort of pulling us back from life.
Mm-hmm.
And tightening things up that I think going front to back does.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, if one's coming from all this to the front, I mean, there's a heck of a lot going on at the back there, isn't there? And then, as you say, if the hamstrings coming up are happening at the same time, again, and those two are linked, because they, as I say, the hamstrings come to the sit bones, but that then comes to the PSIS. So there's a fascial link there as well. Hannes.
Thanks for the picture. It's the spines, iliac spines, posterior and anterior. There's a reason why the bone has a spine for linking together with everything. It's very logic. Yeah. But about the pulse, it's maybe so we can say, which is biological right, is that everything is connected with everything, but a pupil cannot handle this. So there are some pupils who just need time to find their anterior iliac spines, and it would be too much to introduce the posterior iliac spines at the same time. So I think this is, it's a question of pedagogic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I think that, I mean, I have several ones who, or not, some 3 who really have problems with the front pulse, with the iliac spines back and wide. And I definitely give them the alternative to think from the back. And for one of them, she immediately felt the connection to the legs and to the back up. So I think there's no reason why not to give it to the more experienced pupils too. this alternative.
Yes, my own
Um,
thought is that I'm going to see if I can, with these new pupils, when we in a few weeks' time when we get there, I'm going to start with the pulling back to front and see if I can do that one. If they get stuck, I might, go back to the old explanations. But yeah, I've at this point had several pupils put into serious pain by those front to back ones. And I don't think it's going to happen with the back to front ones. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. Sorry, Hannes, I didn't mean to
Oh, it's
jump
good.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I've had several students with sciatic pain, and that made the sciatic pain worse when we did the pelvic pulls. And this one seems to allow the deep hip rotators to open up. And my mum, who was working with this, who was one of the people who had sciatic pain, said, "Oh, when I do it this way, my feet want to come around because her whole legs were wanting to rotate." So I really like it.
Sorry, what is sciatic pain?
Was
Ischias.
ja.
Was?
Yes?
Ischias.
Ah, okay.
I introduced it to a pupil like the iliac spines, if the interior. If you find them, you can say, look, it's like a car, 2 lights front, and now it's your rear lights. So, and I think this was very easy to get.
I like that. Front lights and rear lights.
Because it's on the same height,
Yes, exactly.
and I think it's very easy to get.
Yes, that's very nice. Yes, except that then they don't link around the side, but yeah.
And then you can, if they got 4 points looking out here and here, then coming around is just a bit.
Yeah.
I have one more idea. What happens quite often if you bring the front iliac spine back and wide is that somehow their bum comes out, and then you have to talk of the pubicoccygis forward to have the whole thing, but not just like bringing them. But you know what I mean, bum coming out, and maybe this disappears, or it's more like in one turn without adding more and more information in order to give the whole picture.
Yes.
I'm just wondering.
And I think so, because the way Jando's pulls, the way Jando first taught them to, you've got one doing that, one doing that, and one doing that. So you've got 3 pulls going in very, very different directions.
Yeah.
And now we've got that and that and that, and they're much more coming together, which doesn't create such a, wow, I'm being pulled in 3 directions at once feeling. It's much more organic. And yet it seems to me to be doing exactly the same thing in terms of end result, but doing it with more softness, more fluidity, and not setting up a conflict that you then can't move easily from. So yeah, so I've sort of got to be a Jando, sort of plucking up courage to get in touch with him and say, I think you're getting this wrong. But not that I would say that, but yeah. Micah.
I just have one, what I'm working on now, on my thing is the breath, and because I think that the breath is kind of the connection to everything. Everything is connected, or is kind of swinging with the breath, and especially the upper pulse, but also the lower pulse. I mean, one has the tendency to pull, and then the neck goes a little bit, and everything goes a little bit too tight. So we want responsiveness all the time. And I think I've been working with the breath and with this rib flowing thing, and then from there finding the upper pulse. And I find out that pupils can reach much, much deeper with this breath pull connection thing. And this is, what I'm curious about, how this is going to come to the lower back. But it's just beautiful.
Well, certainly the lower back, I'm finding it much more easy, because when the sacrum, when one makes this pull, the sacrum straight away goes into breathing. As you say, connects with the breathing into the legs. That connects into the breathing of the upper arm. So again, I think it connects the breath and the breath and the pulls in one. And no, it's just seems to be spot on all round. Yeah, I was sort of biting my lips, having to send the reprint manuscript off and thinking, I want to change this, but actually it's going to need quite a bigger rewrite. There we go. Yeah. Did you hear we're reprinting already? Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Shall we begin? You okay, Kazuki? You didn't want to add anything to all this?
I practice push up using the wall every day. My back is more and more comfortable. Thank you so much.
Good. Nice. Lovely. Great. Thank you. Okay, let's begin then. Let's find our mats. We probably won't lie down today, but just a mat you can comfortably stand on. I'll just chuck the dog out and find my specs. Come on, you. So let's start comfortably with hips width apart, heels hips width apart, and let's just free off the knees by shaking them gently. Everybody's standing comfortably. If I change I might. Let's see if I can change my video settings, see if that changes anything. No, it doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. So let's stay where I was. Okay. Right. So, yeah, just finding those, just shaking your knees a little bit, and then bending first one knee, bending it down, and then very softly bringing it back up again, sending it back up from the heels under the backside so that the leg is then free. And again, the other one, just drop it forwards and send it back up. We're just thinking about inviting the quad muscle not to tighten up as we bring the leg in again, so that the legs are just balanced. And then let's just step back like we did last time. And so you're just sitting down into the air and then just pivoting forwards on the talus bone, on that ankle bone. And sitting back down. So we're opening the front ankle and we're also working the back ankle. Alison, can you keep more upright? It's easy to do that as one steps back. That's right. Can you keep the body completely upright? A bit more work in the knee. That's it. And then it's that different quality. You're just letting the sacrum drop straight down. That's it. It's as if you're sitting back in the air. Change leg when you're ready. And you're just getting that smooth rolling up over the talus without again tightening everything in. That's it. So the torso is staying straight and we're getting that real sitting down into the hips. So you're actually coming up off the front of the hips. It's very easy to go, there's the forward again, Alison. Really getting the front of the hips extending up. So the sacrum's still coming, the sternum's coming away from the sit bones. That's it. And then coming back to 2 feet. And again, being aware of those ankles being free, that you can swing forwards and back on them, and then you can find that point where the weight is equally balanced between the big toes, the balls of the feet, and the heels, and you can lift your toes and it neither throws you forwards and back or backwards, because if the weight is too far back and you lift your toes, you'll want to lean back and fall back. And if your weight is too far forwards, you won't be able to lift your toes. So I think if one can lift the toes comfortably without it throwing the weight, that's quite a nice indicator that you're probably got the weight over the medial ankle. And now let's play with the head neck joint, as we were the other day in the book club, Hannah knows, where we're just finding that pivot point. But if we only use the pivot point, the head drops down. Whereas if we think of the head actually pivoting on the center of gravity, which is behind the cheekbones, so that the whole head is coming back and up. Somebody put a lovely image on the Facebook page today. Did anyone see it, of the ball, a ball rolling on water on a little fountain? And that's what our heads are doing. They're rolling back at the back and forwards at the front, so that the bit in the middle comes forwards, so that you come forwards and up. And it pivots around this cheekbone. So that, of course, then leads us into, can lead us into a bend, if we're willing to go there yet, but we're not quite there. Let's just find our vestibular directions, just up, down, front, back, side, side. Just find that infinite connection from the top of the head down through the soles of the feet, and then take that one through the top of the head and out to the heavens. Take it up through the ceiling of your room, up through the sky, and up to Mars, whatever's above us. And the one below, take us down through the soles of the feet, down through the floorboards, down into the earth, and down to the center of the earth, because you can't visualize it. If it's going that far, you really can't visualize it. You just have to know it's there. This up-down line that goes between Mars and the center of the earth, between the sky and the center of the earth. And then front back the same way, letting your nose feather go forwards and disappear out through the room, out across the fields or the city or wherever you are, and out over the horizon, 100 miles away. And sending mine all the way up to the north of Ireland. And then my back line, I'm sending it out the back of the head, and I'm sending it all down, all the way back to the south of Ireland, down to Cork. And I'm standing on an enormous line between Letterkenny and Cork. That's it. And then side, likewise, out all the way to Dublin that side, and possibly all the way to America on that side. You can work out your own geography for your location. That's it, and we're held between these 6 points. Almost like one of those pens that's held suspended in the magnetic field. And then finding our spatial awareness within that, just letting your nose feather come from the back of the brain. So just seeing your whole room across the space. And the vestibular directions are turning with you. We're turning around the up-down axis, and then the front, back, and the side axis turn with us. And we have that spatial sense of the room. The detail of what we're looking at, the spatial sense of the room and behind ourselves. And then we start noticing the spatial sense of ourselves and the breath. Just being aware of the breath coming in and out like waves on the sea. Letting the out breath be a little longer, let the in breath just happen. And then finding that breath all the way down to the pelvic floor by waiting a little longer on the out breath, letting it come all the way down to the pelvic floor. And then just being aware of that breath coming in through the perineum and out down the legs. The breath comes in through the perineum and sends out down the legs. Just do that a few times to find that one. In through the perineum and out down the legs. And now, have you found your feet with that? Can you feel the breath? Put your thumb up if you can feel your breath all the way down to the feet. Can you find the, yep, good. So now let's explore taking it in the other direction. This is a new one I've been playing with because I became aware the other day I was standing down too heavily into my feet. I was trying to find my feet with the breath. And I thought, how about if I let the breath come in through the soles of the feet and up to the pelvic floor that way? Because the foot, the sole of the foot, the arch of the foot is also a diaphragm. So what happens if we think up from the soles of the feet and up to the belly, and then maybe down the legs still on the out breath? So the in-breath is flowing up the legs and the out-breath is flowing down. Okay, put your thumb up if you can find this one. Yeah. How do you find it? Anyone like to comment? Laura.
When you changed the idea, I realized I had been digging my heels down, and then that softened.
Yes, nice, thank you. Kazuyuki.
My sacroiliac joints are opened.
Ah, lovely. Okay, yeah. Right. Okay, Micah.
It feels like something streaming up with the in-breath and streaming down with the out-breath.
Nice. Yeah. Hannes.
Yeah, very beautiful. So in the foot, the diaphragm in the sole of the foot, it's opening and activating the whole foot. Very beautiful. And I recognized, as I read also on the iliacus and the linking into the legs, I realized I need a lot of, so all this heaviness from standing, it is also fighting gravity with the legs. And this is a helpful play for this, like that the leg muscles, which are carrying all the weight, can stay alive and lengthening and vital. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Yes, you're echoing what I'm finding then. Anadora.
Somehow it feels more organic with the breath. It's more fitting the or feeding the breathing. It's somehow nicer with the breath.
It's yes, I'm finding it's feeding my feet. Because I was on a workshop for 4 days, which involved a lot of standing, and my feet were getting painful. And when I reversed the breath, it went away. Yeah, and it felt like my feet joined into me rather than being something I sort of imposed on. It joined my feet in.
it also reminds me of what we did in one of the fitness sessions, I think. If we go apart with the legs and stretch them out on the ground, and each in-breath you think into the legs, and then it's something's opening the legs, and I think this direction has the same quality.
Good. And
Actually, I think it's good.
sorry. Yeah, Alison.
It took me a little while to find because I had the challenge of the idea of the air coming up the legs and the pelvic floor comes down with the in-breath. And so I kept getting them banging up against each other until I thought about a little like we did with the seat bones, that instead of coming all the way down, there's the tone in the pelvic floor. And that then I could find the breath all the way up the legs. But it took me quite a while because I had those two images going the wrong way. So then it was nice because I had, as the breath came up and there's the arch in the foot, the breath comes up the leg, and the pelvic floor doesn't just collapse on the inhale, it has more tone to it, but it's still moving down.
Yeah, nice. Yes, I mean, this is the sort of thing one has to rethink. Yes. Micah, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, as I continue doing this, I feel the legs coming up, the breath coming out through the feet. It's coming up the whole way.
Yeah.
It's like opening. It's opening the back on the in breath and then letting go a little bit on the out breath. It's kind of the wave goes through.
Nice. So now we've all found that, I want you to carry on. I'm going to keep coming back to that all the way through today as something to keep working with as we work on the feet today. So let's go from there to the pulls that we did. Just find that. So we've got the breath coming up on the in-breath, and then the PSIS, we're going to pull the PSIS towards the ASAS. Everyone okay with that terminology? Posterior iliac spines to the front iliac spines. And the pubococcygeal softly forwards. And the backs of the knees up towards the sitting bones. And let's just give that a 3. 1, 2, 3. And then let's add into that the elbows outwards, forwards and down, and the top of the sternum pulling up away from the sitting bones and away from the backs of the knees. And let's just add those in as well. 1, 2, 3. So let's do a whole body twist like we did, keeping all that going, and just that breath streaming up on the in-breath, and letting the eyes twist right. The eyes are taking the head to the side. And then back again, and then the other way. So you could do the in-breath as you turn away, and then the out-breath as you turn back again. And then we're going to let the shoulder follow. Letting the back shoulder lead, but not the hips. Again, twisting the eyes and then the shoulders the other way. And then back again. And then we'll let the hips join in, but not the ankles. Eyes, shoulders, hips. And then finally, eyes, shoulders, hips, and ankles. When you're back to the front from the last one, just letting the eyes lead, but letting it only lead so far as this forwards and up from the pivot to the center of gravity, so that the next thing to go are the hips, the back streams back and up. And even though we're going down, what's it like to get that upflow of the breath going as you make that movement, and then come up again on the out breath. And on the next one, let that forward bend monkey happen, and then add in the side twist. Whatever degree you want. Sarah.
Penelope, would you mind putting your camera a little further down so we could see a little more of your body?
Oh, sure, yes.
And I'm just wondering, when you do this, the forward bend and then the spiral, you allow your knees to move?
Yes, yes. So yes, they do if we let the full spiral happen, I mean, you can let the eyes go and the shoulders don't go. You can then let the shoulders go, but not the hips. When the hips go, then the knees spiral.
Okay.
So it's being clear of whether you're allowing that to happen or not. But here's another variation, which is to bring your hands like this to prayer position, and then to make the spiral, but not let the knees go. Let the elbows go up. Can you bring it to the elbow to the knee, and then go the other way, and see if one can do that without letting the knees go, just to get it from the twist in the shoulder. But, the minute the hips get involved, the knees will change, which is something we need the capacity for as well. Is that shifting forwards and back of the hips. How's that, Sarah?
Yes, I've been doing this quite a lot in my classes, the forward bends, not the twists. And I had a student get a wonderful relief from not letting the knees go forward, like we did at some point, I can't remember in which point, with the chair in front. Is that, yeah, bringing the iliac spines back, right? And is that, that was one of my questions for today. Is that something that you think is good to always think about when we're doing this deep forward bend like that?
Well, I think this is an interesting one. In physio speak, and certainly a certain amount of gym trainers, I think, they have an absolute rule that the knee must not go over the front of the foot because it's strain on the foot. I said it to Giora once, and he said, "Oh, those sort of people will think that. Of course they can." So I think, provided there is lightness in the body, you can actually make a knee over hip movement, but you probably wouldn't want to do it carrying 1,000-kilogram weight at the same time. At that point, the minute you want strength in it, I think it's better to do this one. And certainly, you know, when people, you know, lift enormous weights, they're encouraged to keep that back, aren't they? For that reason, because if you had the knee there, there's far too much down pressure. And if you had a big weight on it, I suspect that's the answer. So anyone with troubled knees, they don't want to let those knees go too far forwards. But if you're functioning well, there's no reason why they shouldn't. But there's more, I think that's the more ergonomic one, is that you
Right. So it's a good thing to work on and then not get too strained about. Like, it's okay if the knees go a little forward, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly. And of course, in the pure Jando form, as it were, the knees only stay still for the first part. After that, of course, the knee has to do the zigzag bend, whereas a lot of trainers will take the bum right back to avoid any bend forwards. So I think there's, you know, there's 10 ways of killing a cat, as it were. Yes, Anadora.
You did something like that in the session. I think it was just Hannes and someone else with the mental piece. This very strong from here back and up and breathing back and up and everything like coming back and up. And I was experimenting with a pupil I'm teaching for a long time now, and he always had like a rest of insecurity when he was coming closer to the chair, like, oh, now it's getting dangerous. And he had like a rest of, I have to come forward with my upper body in order to get to the chair. And all at once, all this was gone. It was really just very connected and flowing, and also taking pressure off the knees, of course. So I think it's really good. It's just a very strong connection to the back line.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think it's the more one stays back in that, the better. All I'm saying is there will be circumstances where you don't. I think that's the main thing. And something like that is a movement. You know, it's one of those movements that we should be able to do, where one knee comes forwards and the other knee comes forward. And you know, a lot of pupils can't coordinate that. So it's just having the flexibility of movement. But you're right, and we're going to come back to the mantelpiece one today, actually. We'll have another play with that, but without a mantelpiece. Yeah. So yeah, backing up always is the ideal. Let's come to the movement of the legs. Let's just do that lateral movement of the ankles, just to say hello to it. And finishing on the inside. And then let's just explore how, when one does these new pelvic pulls, and the posterior iliac spine round to the anterior iliac spine, that completely works the screwing of the ankles. That goes together with it. A number of people have said that when one does this pull, it screws the ankle for you. And then can we do that while getting this up breath, this in breath going up? Because again, screwing the ankle can be a sort of very down movement. What happens if we think an in-breath on this, an in-breath coming up from the feet? Micah.
Just a question. Do you mean like I screw, I pull, I let the breath come, I do all this on the in-breath and I let go on the out-breath, or I maintain, on the out-breath?
Yeah, so I was thinking to pulse it. So I'm thinking to pull the posterior iliac spine to the anterior iliac spine, the backs of the knees up to the sitting bones, and screw the ankles, and get the breath as we do that, to get the breath coming up on the in-breath from the soles of the feet.
Yeah.
And then let it all go down again. Let's just let the tension out of it again on the out breath.
I mean, this is the mantelpiece, isn't it? This is what I felt when I was practicing this mantelpiece thing, coming up without coming forward.
Yes,
That my legs were like
that's
like
right.
going up, and nothing happened in this regard coming forward. But it's
Absolutely.
okay.
So before we go to the mantelpiece, we're just going to add the hip lifts, just to work, because this is working the inside leg muscles. So let's just do a few hip lifts without a book. And there's a nice one I'm doing with pupils now, which is to hold one hand here and one hand here. And when you get the hip lift, you can see one hand, the upper hand, going away from the lower hand. And then you know it's working. It's just a nice little proof for pupils when they're first finding this. And of course, staying with the big toes. Hannes.
As we talked on the iliacus today, and you showed the picture, and there is, so on the outside of the iliac crest, it's the gluteus medius. And so they are antagonists in a way. The iliacus on the inside of the crest, and also in this movement, it's like the iliacus is working as well.
That's nice. That's a nice thought, because the iliacus, of course, is connecting through to here.
To the inside of the leg.
The thigh, yes. And the gluteus medius is connecting down to the greater trochanter. And so the psoas must be connecting down to exactly the same point, but on the inside. Yeah, so that's a really nice thought to think about. Thank you.
So one is going up and the other is going down on the inside.
Well,
right?
that's pulling down that way. Which way does the iliacus pull? It could be pulling down, it could be pulling up. I don't know which way it officially pulls, but I would say they're probably both pulling down at this point, I would say. But stabilizing there across the iliac crest.
So stabilizing the inside is so important for the lever of lifting the pelvis, lifting the other side of the pelvis, and for this we need the stability of the inside of the leg.
Yes.
To have this.
To prevent that one.
Yes, it will prevent that, absolutely, because it's pulling that way. It's really going to help there, isn't it? And I'm just thinking about the fact that both those muscles go between the PSAS and the ASAS. They both go along the whole, the iliacus on the inside and the gluteus medius on the outside are both sort of, then it's not just at the front, not just at the back, and not just in the middle. It's really stabilizing the whole of the width, isn't it? Both of them. And again, mentally, we so rarely include that back part. But when you include the back part, there's such stability there. And then, of course, the top of the gluteus maximus is involved as well. So there's a lot of stabilizers there.
And as I do the pull, I think the lateral side until the armpit opening, also on the inside of the leg, I can think up the deep front line.
Yes, absolutely.
They are opening both.
Yes, yes. Quite right. And Dora.
And here again, the thought of letting the breath up the leg goes totally with the whole movement.
Yes.
So it would be really difficult to do it the other way around. Because it's when you come up, it's also you get an in breath, and then because you're coming up the leg, it's coming up the leg and into, you know, the rest of the body. So it's totally organic.
Yes, it's flowing through, isn't it? Get that breath coming right from the bottom. Makes it softer somehow, doesn't it? Okay, so now we've found that. Coming back to, we've got that going on the outside. We've got the PSIS coming to the anterior. We've got the backs of the knees coming up to the sitting bones, and we've got the screw in the ankle. All that's going on at the same time. Then how much do we have to lean forwards to come on the toes?
Can you say that again?
So we've got these two sides of the lateral movement happening, as we know, it's giving us stability. And then we've got the posterior spines, again, coming back to what we were doing just a moment ago, getting the posterior spines pulling to the anterior, pubococcygeals forwards, hamstrings to the back of the knees, and screwing the ankles. Just finding all that on the in-breath. Again. And then putting it all together to come on the toes. And how much do we need to lean forwards? And how much can we simply engage that, screwing the ankles back and up? This is coming back. And we really hardly have to lean forward. And there's another one which Jando taught me, which I don't know why it works, but if you do the same thing, but pull down really strongly on the front of your clothes, it helps not to lean forwards. So you're taking hold of your t-shirt or whatever you want and just really pulling it down as you screw the ankles to go up. And I'm not quite sure why that works, but it's something to do with the trapezius, the front of the trapezius somehow. Anyone notice that helps?
Yeah, it's similar to the mantelpiece, right? You use it to press away, and here it's the t-shirt, but it's the same movement that the front, or here it's something is opening and going down.
Yes.
As in opposition to coming up in the back, so it helps the movement. It's another support from the front.
Yes. It's rather fun, isn't it? And finding the same thing without using the pull down. Yeah, that's all nice. Alison, you finding that all right? Yeah, great. Okay, now we've really found our stability, hopefully. Let's bring one leg up. And off we go. Now twists again. So to stabilize here, of course, think the breath up from the legs, think the PSIS back, forwards rather, and all your pulls, keep it going as you need. And then seeing if you can let the eyes go around to the right and then back again. Keep the breath into the pelvic floor. And then breath, and then eyes and upper torso. I'm not very good at this one at the moment. And eyes and other way. I'm definitely falling over today. And if you can, do the whole twist right into the hips, which I don't think I'm going to be able to find today. Some days I can do this one, and some days I can't. Okay, that wasn't bad. Ah! And then when you're ready, try the other leg. It might be better off the yoga mat. Sometimes I find being on a harder surface rather than a soft surface helps. stabilizing everything. Just take your own time and see what works for you. So there's no goal, it's just an exploration of what works for you today. It really does show us to what extent we're over our vestibular lines, as it were. Because the minute the vestibular lines are off, we will lose it. Better. Changing legs between each level of the twist. That's now feeling easier. What? How are you doing? Finding that? Yes, people are finding the stability in it. That's nice, Micah. Okay, when you're back to the square, we can even try the tilt. Again, I think the secret to this one is only let the tilt happen in this upper half of the body, because the minute it goes into the hips, you'll fall over. Keeping the hip lift working so that we're not collapsing into the supporting leg. Again, we can really stand down firmly into that supporting leg. But we can also get the sense of breathing up from it. That's great. So now we've warmed up the legs thoroughly, let's do a horse riding stance and hold it like they do in Tai Chi. So I'm just going to take a slightly wider base. Going to take again, just find all the stability, all the pulls, posterior iliac spine forwards to anterior iliac spine, pubicoccygeals forwards, sitting bones, back of the knees up to the sitting bones, screwing the ankles, elbows outwards, forwards and down, and sternum up away from the backs of the knees. 1, 2, 3, and then letting that lead from these coming back, posterior iliac spines coming back, and that little tilt of the head. And let ourselves come back into the horse riding stance, which of course stays as upright as possible. We're not leaning forwards any more than is needed. Being aware of standing down into the feet, both the breath releasing down into the feet and yet coming up from it. And we're going to stay here for 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, or the point at which you're exhausted, just stand up and I'll watch how far we all get. So just keep that breathing going. Just keep sending the directions through it. Feel the PSIS are coming around. We could also add the hands here. I think the traditional way of doing it, which again is bringing in this round of the elbows outwards, forwards and down, coming round from it's like we're coming round from here and round from the back of the armpit and round from the ribs as well. The back of the ribs pulling towards the front of the ribs, the back of the armpit pulling round towards the front of the chest, as well as the PSIS pulling round towards the front, pubococcygeal still pulling forwards, backs of the knees still pulling up to the sitting bones, screwing the ankles still happening, sternum coming up away from the sitting bones and the backs of the knees, and the breath both releasing down into the feet and yet also coming up from it. And again, you can play with the breath both ways round. Thinking down on the in-breath and up on the out-breath, or the other way around. Up on the in-breath and down on the out-breath. Still the breath is flowing. Up on the in-breath is lengthening up the shins, which again is taking pressure off the knees. The sacrum is widening with the breath. The top of the sternum is still floating up. Can we wiggle the toes easily in this position? So are we equally across the heels and the balls of the toes? Is the medial ankle still alive? And still the PSIS pulling round to the front iliac spines. Pubococcygeals gently forwards, the torso is staying upright. The arms also made buoyant by the breath. The widening of the scapulae. The fact that the scapula, that the ribs at the back of the armpit are pulling round to the front. The back ribs are pulling round to the front ribs. So the back is coming back away from the knees. One more minute to go, and then we've managed 5 minutes. Everyone's doing very well. Wave at me if you're actually struggling at this point, but let's see if we can stay for that 1 more minute. Being aware that we're both reaching down to the feet and connecting up from the feet. The feet are part of us. We are a whole body. It's not me connecting with my feet, or even my feet connecting with me. I am my feet. My feet are part of me. I'm an integral being that includes my feet. It's quite difficult to phrase this. I'm also an integral being that involves my hands, my arms, my shoulders. Okay. How was that? Anyone like to comment? Anadora?
Yeah, it feels very stable and flexible at the same time, and I could stay longer. For my arms, it was a bit harder than for my legs. My legs could have stayed on and on.
Yes, yes, that's where
Me
I was
too.
feeling. Yeah, yes,
Me too.
yes.
I found the same. I wasn't sure how much bend you had in your knees, Penelope, looking frontwards. It's not a pose I'd ever taken before. I think that it was just a tiny little bend back. Is that correct?
I wasn't doing an enormous bend. It's true. I don't think any of us were we? We weren't doing enormous bends. Enough.
I've been
But you know, it was about there.
okay. Yeah.
Not there, but about
Right. That was what I was doing. Yeah.
I think everyone was doing the same on that one. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that?
It was very interesting to play with the breath in two directions. I mean, the frame was clear and set, so it gave possibility to really experience or try out things with the breath coming out. Yeah, and that was, yeah, it was interesting.
Nice. Okay. Let's has everybody done moonwalking with me? Yeah? Yeah, you've all done moonwalking. Let's do a bit of moonwalking. Now we've been working our feet. So let's just start with I'll just pull up my screen again so you've just got my feet for a minute. See if I can do this. I'm still learning to use these different settings on my camera. No, it doesn't make a difference, does it? No, I don't think that's changed it. Anyway, so the front foot is just doing that. So again, hip lift in the other leg. Where that full stability then, just finding that pawing horse. That's it. Nice. And then the other leg. Hip lift on the other side. So we've got that lovely full stability. Okay. And then the main leg, the stance leg, is doing both a bend. It's both doing that sit into the air that we were doing to start with, and at the same time, it's doing a push-up with the ankle. So it's the hip stays back, like we were doing to start with, the torso stays upright, but yet we're doing the push forward of the heel, and at the same time, the knee bends. So the hips don't change level. The torso actually doesn't change. As long as we keep this sense of staying back in the hips, the torso is neither bobbing up and down, nor is it moving back and forwards in space hardly. Maybe very slightly, but hardly anything at all. And then we can put the two together. So as the front foot strokes back, so the back foot pushes up and the knee bends. And then as we get to full extension, the knee lands, the other foot lands and takes the weight. So it's drawing back with the front foot as the back foot, the stance leg pushes up. And the knee bends and the hips continue to find this, the sitting bones continue to drop down. Alice, start with the back leg straight, and as the front foot brushes in, that's when it bends. So that's now straight, the back leg's now straight, brush through. So as that front leg brushes through, the back heel pushes up and the knee bends. So that's your front, that's it, yes, that's it. That's it, yes. Yeah, it's better. And make sure that that stance leg is the one doing the work. Okay, you've got it beautifully. So Sarah. Yeah, Sarah, keep the point at which starting, the back leg is straight. And then it bends. That's it, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Is that better?
It feels different than what I see you doing.
Does it? Okay. Maybe it is.
You're right. Somehow I had the idea that it was lower, but you're not. You keep. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you're pretty upright actually. When we did the Chinese wife walking, I think that was a little lower, wasn't it? But again, that's they're all full height. It's all yeah. You stay as a leg's length only throughout. That's the length you're staying, is the length of your leg. Yes, somehow yours isn't quite the same, Sarah, but it's very beautiful. Yes, I think your back leg's going slightly ahead, actually. I think it's bending ahead. I think that's what's happening. I think what you're doing is more that. It's going ahead, which is fine. I mean, it's a choice of when it's a harder movement, that. Whereas if one doesn't do it till the last minute, you're sort of more on top of yourself. And I think I'm doing it more on top of myself. You're doing it more ahead, which actually is it makes it more of a dancing movement, as it were. You finding it, Alison, all right? Yeah. Lovely. Let's just finish with a little ballet. Just finding turnout. You okay, Hannes? Yep. So if you find your turnout, now the interesting thing about turnout is you can keep both the hip lifts and the front. You really are on that front ball of the big toe and yet the hip lift. So you can now just, that's it. Yeah. Everybody's done this before by the look of it, and then swap sides. So we're doing eight to each side, and then swap to 4 to each side. And then 2 to each side. These get increasingly stable, and then 1, 1, 1, 1. So really having to work those stabilizers not to overbalance. Lovely, beautiful, nice. Absolutely. And then we can also do them to the front. Slightly different stabilizers. Harder to the front somehow. And then the back, of course, is slightly different again. It's harder to weight transfer to the back, I find. Yes, okay, that's Sarah's doing. Let's do forward and back. No need to go too high. Just go as high as is absolutely comfortable, because what we don't want to do is go into the quads. We want to just stay from the psoas and the hamstring. So whatever your natural, and again, we don't want to get into swinging the hips. So we're just coming from whatever the leg does happily from under the joint. That's it. So nothing dramatic. And Adora, you're nice and flexible there. And let's take it into a bit of heron walking. So I think we've done heron walking before, where the heron in the pond, and then choosing where to land. And again, the heron stands there on one foot, or the stalk, looking for where the next fish is and where it will walk to. And then it makes a very deliberate, slow step and across. I love watching herons walking in water. They choose their point. They weight transfer across, they bring the other leg up. You watch them do this. Beautiful birds. And you can go in all planes, you can go forwards, sideways, backwards. It's a weight transfer between. This lovely stability. And again, this torso stays upright. There's no need to tilt forwards. We can do if we were needing to go under a fence, but if not, we stay upright. Okay. Anyone like to share before we finish?
Things I haven't done in years, Penelope. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I can see you did the ballet classes once upon a time.
The heron walking was much easier this time than when I'd done it several months ago. I felt much more stable.
Yes, yes. You're looking different, Alison. You're looking much more. It's all coming together. Yeah, yeah.
What's a heron? Raya? Yeah.
Yes, I presume. Do they have herons in Japan as well, Kazuyuki? Do they? Yeah. Yeah, and in Brazil. You know herons, Sarah?
Mexico, no, no herons.
No herons. Do you know the sort of bird I mean? That sort of long, tall water bird. Yes, yes, you get the idea. But flamingos do the same thing, and so do storks. Okay, have fun with all that, and see you in 2 weeks' time, and we'll start getting into the psoas and the deep bends and the yoga stuff next time. Yeah, Hannes?
I have a thought on the breathing to invert the direction of the breathing. So as we inverted it, I was able to switch it to the original direction and it was changed. So maybe it does not matter so much, but we get fixed in thinking it in one direction and blocking something. And if we are able to change it, it's the same. So maybe it's not the direction of thinking matters, but the flexibility.
I think that's very true. And you know, when you've got a very still pond and you or a bathtub and you start one stone in and it ripples to the side and then it starts to ripple back and then you get all those cross waves. Well,
Yeah.
that must actually be what's happening in the body. Because if you think about it, the blood vessels and the heart are sending their wave through the body. The breathing is sending its wave. The craniosacral rhythms are sending their waves. If we're walking, that's sending a wave. If we're pushing something or rowing a boat or whatever, that's sending its wave. So we've got all these multiple waves, all going crisscross. And the point is to allow them all to flow.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going. Sarah?
Yes, I also had a thought about the breathing because I've been also thinking a lot about it. And because we can't sense the diaphragm, right? We don't really have nerve endings to feel the diaphragm moving down. But I was feeling the ribs in that expansion, lateral expansion. But there's a slight feeling of out and up, at least in my ribs, right? As I'm inhaling. So I'm thinking, oh, I guess that's why, it's so easy to think of inhaling up. And there's that, because you can feel that and you can't feel the diaphragm, right? So I was thinking, well, maybe that's okay. Like as Hannes was saying, that we can be flexible in switching to having that aspect of breathing that's more easily to sense.
I think the problem with up on the in-breath is that so many people
Right.
do that. That's the one we're looking to avoid
Yes.
by saying in-breath goes
Sure.
down, by tracking. But you're absolutely right. I mean, as Missy Vineyard's little one, that the diaphragm goes down and the ribs go up like bucket handles.
Right. But they're going out and there's like that sort of little wave up.
Yes, there is. Absolutely. So the middle goes down and the outsides go up, the middle goes up and the outsides go down. And again, so often there is an interplay up the outside and the core of the body.
And then the scapula on that gliding motion also.
Yes, that's also going out and probably a little bit up, I guess. I don't know. Because they would be traveling on the ribs, I guess, as well. So yes, there is an up movement on the outside of the body. But if the inside of the body comes up, we got a problem. We want that core of the body connecting down. And we've been saying the pelvic floor goes down, and that's what I've always felt. But if you watch Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, she says that the pelvic floor moves up on the in-breath and down on the out-breath. So, excuse me. So, but that's obviously her experience. So back to this thing that what is up and what is down. And I think Hannes is right. We don't have to get too fixated on it. It is just allowing this multiple flow. For myself, I've had to really work to get down to my feet. And again, I think that's a commonality. We have to work to get down to the pelvic floor and then down to the feet. But having got there, we then have to let the breath come in the other direction. So it's like not getting any of it gets stuck. Hannes?
And as we all experienced not being embodied and having really to work for getting into the feet, so we are having in this thinking down, we have all this effort. And maybe we are still carrying this effort of how to get down. Maybe we can go there much easier now because we practice it. And this is what is the inversion showing us. Oh, it goes very light now because I changed, because it's years gone when I started to fight for getting down there.
Yes, yeah, that too. Micah.
And it's because we trained for quite a while now to our spatial awareness, I think, to get out of the way, to let this all, and not to go down with the focus, which is creating more tension and so on. I think this is the one of the main clues to get out of the way and watch at the same time.
Yeah. So it's just another, these are all tools. Man I worked with years ago called Walter Lubeck said, every tool one uses is a ladder to the next floor. You don't stay on the ladder. You go up the ladder or the staircase until you get to the next floor. That's where you want to be. But when you're on that ladder, on that floor, you realize there's another floor and you need another ladder. So in thinking up the legs, we've just given ourselves another ladder, but we don't need to mistake the medium for the message to change. You know, the ladder is not the end result. What matters is the fluidity of, and so we progress. And when one works with pupils, you have to start at the bottom of the ladder, the bottom of the building that's being constructed. Sarah, you're off. Good to see you. Yeah. Okay. So with that thought, let's leave it there for today and see you all in 2 weeks, I hope. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Penelope.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.